All right, let's dive into one of the most successful and honestly one of the weirdest animal groups on the entire planet, the phylum Mollusca. We're about to uncover what connects some of the most wildly different creatures you can possibly imagine.
I mean, think about it for a second. What could a snail possibly have in common with a giant squid? It sounds like a trick question, right? You've got this super slow-moving creature from your garden, and then this monster of the deep sea. But stick with me, because you're going to see they're way more closely related than you'd ever guess.
Okay, let's start with something we all know. The snail, right? You know the one. It's got that soft body, that classic spiral shell, and it just kind of oozes along on that single muscular foot. This is like textbook mollusk stuff.
All right, now let's switch gears completely. A clam. It just sits there, tucked away inside its two shells. No head that you can see, just living its life buried in the sand. I mean, it looks absolutely nothing like a snail. And yet, yep, it's also a mollusk.
And just when you think it can't get any weirder, let's throw the octopus into the mix. These things are brilliant, right? 8 arms, these incredibly complex eyes, and no shell on the outside whatsoever. It's like something from a sci-fi movie compared to our snail and our clam. And still, it's a mollusk. How? And just to really drive the point home, let me show you a deep cut from the family tree, the tusk shell. It's basically this hollow, tusk-shaped shell that burrows into the ocean floor. So, seriously, what on earth is the secret connection between all these animals? What ties them all together?
Well, the secret, the thing that connects them all, is actually pretty simple, but it's also genius. It all comes down to a shared 3-part blueprint. It's like the basic chassis that every single one of these animals is built on, no matter how crazy they look on the outside.
So here it is. This is the big secret. Every mollusk, I don't care if it's a tiny snail or a giant squid, has these 3 core parts: a muscular foot, something called a visceral mass, and a mantle. So let's break down what each of those things actually is.
First up, we've got the muscular foot. You can pretty much think of this as the engine of the mollusk. Its whole job is getting the animal from point A to point B. That slow, steady crawl of a snail, that's the foot. The digging action of a clam, that's the foot too. It's all powered by this one amazing structure.
Okay, part 2, the visceral mass. The easiest way to think about this is like a built-in backpack. It's the part of the body that holds all the important stuff, all the internal organs. We're talking digestive system, reproductive parts, the whole shebang. It's all packed neatly inside this mass.
And finally, part 3 is the mantle. So this is a thin layer of tissue, and it kind of drapes over that visceral mass, like a cloak. But its real job, its most important function, is to create the shell. It secretes calcium carbonate, which is what the shell is made of, so you can think of the mantle as the little architect and construction worker that builds the mollusk's house.
So, okay, they all share this blueprint. But that still leaves the big question. How does this one simple plan lead to so much variety? I mean, snail versus octopus? The answer is all in how those 3 basic parts can be twisted, tweaked, and adapted for totally different jobs.
Let's just look at the shell for a second. The mantle is always the part that makes it, right? But what it builds can be wildly different. You can get a big, heavy suit of armor on the outside, like a snail has. Or it can be a tiny little support structure inside the body, like that pen you find in a squid. Same process, same builder, but totally different houses.
And the foot is maybe the best example of this adaptability. For a snail, it's a flat, slimy thing for crawling. Simple enough. For a clam, it's shaped more like a shovel for digging. Makes sense. But for an octopus, get this. That same original foot evolved into its arms and the siphon it uses to shoot through the water. I mean, come on, it's the ultimate biological multi-tool.
Okay, so now that we've got the blueprint down, let's zoom in on a few other key features that really define what makes a mollusk a mollusk. Think of these as the nuts and bolts of how they live.
So a lot of mollusks have this really cool feeding tool called a radula. The best way to picture it is like a ribbon covered in thousands of tiny, sharp teeth. They use this thing to scrape food off surfaces or even to drill holes right through other shells. It's basically like having a tiny, terrifying chainsaw for a tongue. Pretty wild, right? So let's just quickly run through a few other core traits that tie them together. They're all soft-bodied and they're not segmented like worms are. Most of them are what we call bilaterally symmetrical. One side is a mirror image of the other. They typically breathe with gills, and they have these specialized organs for getting rid of waste. It's all these little details that, really solidifies them as one big family.
So where do all these creatures actually live? Well, as you can see, the huge majority of them are marine. They live in the ocean. But that super adaptable body plan has let them spread out. They've moved into freshwater rivers and lakes, and some, like our old friend the garden snail, have even managed to conquer the land. Okay, let's pull all this together. We've seen just how incredibly diverse this group is, but we've also found this simple blueprint that connects every single one of them. And what that really tells us is a story about incredible evolutionary success. And this is really the key takeaway. The secret to their success isn't some super complex design. It's the exact opposite. It's the simplicity and the flexibility of that three-part plan. It's such a good foundation that evolution has been able to just tweak it here and there to build a creature for pretty much any environment you can think of. This quote just nails it perfectly. From the garden snail to the deep-sea squid, one fundamental blueprint connects them all. It's such a great reminder that sometimes in nature, the best designs aren't the most complicated. They're the ones that give life a simple, flexible toolkit to work with. So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. This ridiculously simple blueprint ended up conquering the oceans, the land, and fresh water. It gave us some of the slowest, fastest, and smartest invertebrates on the entire planet. So what does that really tell us about the raw power of adaptation?